The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a soft glow over the quiet park. The air was cool, the kind that made the evening feel peaceful yet heavy with unspoken thoughts. We walked side by side, the familiar rhythm of our steps matching that, of our dog's paws patting softly on the path ahead. "You ever think about how things change?" I asked quietly, breaking the silence between us. My friend glanced at me, his brow furrowed in thought. "Change?" "Yeah," I said, watching the fading light reflect in his eyes. "How we started as just friends, and now it feels different." He didn't respond immediately. Instead, he kept walking, his hands stuffed into his pockets as if trying to process the words. The weight of the moment hung in the air, making it hard to breathe. Our friendship had always been simple, rooted in shared memories, laughter, and a deep understanding. But now it felt as though something had shifted beneath the surface. A connection deeper than just companionship, yet undefined, unspoken. The dog barked softly, chasing after a fluttering leaf before circling back to us. We continued walking, in silence, the path ahead unclear but undeniably different. "You notice it too," I said softly, more as a statement than a question. "Yeah," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. "It's complicated." The evening grew darker, the subtle tension between us growing stronger with each passing second. The boundaries that once defined our friendship were blurring, and neither of us knew where to draw the line. As we reached a quiet bench near a grove of trees, we stopped. The dog sat beside us, watching with curious eyes as if aware that something was changing. Neither of us spoke immediately, but the air was thick with unspoken truths. "We've been through a lot together," I said finally, breaking the quiet. "But now it feels like we're stepping into something new, something that could change everything." He nodded slowly, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Yeah, maybe we are." And with that, we sat in quiet understanding, the uncharted path ahead looming between us, a journey neither of us could predict, but one we couldn't ignore. Days turned into weeks, and Jessica and I continued to explore this unspoken intimacy. Max was still very much a part of our lives, but the moments we shared with him felt different now. He was no longer just a dog. We were no longer just friends. Our connection had grown deeper, more emotional, more complex. One evening, we found ourselves sitting on the porch, the cool night air swirling around us. Max lay at our feet, his soft breathing rhythmic against the silence. "Do you ever wonder what it would be like if Max wasn't here?" Jessica asked quietly, her voice soft but filled with meaning. "I've thought about it," I admitted, "but I don't know if we could figure it out without him." We sat in silence for a while, the stars twinkling above us. It felt as though we were walking a thin line, balancing on the edge of something we couldn't quite define. There was no going back, no way to undo what had already been felt. The weight of our unspoken thoughts hung between us, thick and palpable. Every glance, every touch lingered a second longer than before, and it became harder to ignore the way our hearts beat in sync. Max shifted slightly, his eyes watching us intently as if he understood more than we gave him credit for. He had been a silent witness to everything, a constant presence in our lives as the boundaries blurred. Jessica leaned back, her head resting against my shoulder, and for a moment, the world outside ceased to exist. It was just the two of us, suspended in this fragile state of undefined emotions. "I don't know if we should be doing this," she whispered, breaking the quiet. "I don't either," I admitted, my voice barely above a breath. "But I can't seem to stop." There was no easy answer, no way to erase the moments that had already come to pass. The border between friendship and something deeper had long since blurred, and there was no clear path back to what we once were. And as the night stretched on, we knew that what we shared now couldn't be undone. As days passed, Jessica and I began to seek out these moments more frequently. It wasn't something we planned or discussed. It just happened. Max, of course, remained the silent presence, oblivious to the shifting dynamics between his two owners. One night after dinner, Jessica and I found ourselves alone in the living room. The curtains were drawn, leaving only the soft glow of the lamp to illuminate the space. Max lay peacefully at our feet, his head resting on my lap. Jessica leaned in, her fingers running softly through Max's fur. "He loves this," she whispered, her voice low and intimate. I looked down at her, our eyes meeting briefly. The air between us felt charged with a tension we couldn't ignore. "Do we?" I asked softly. She smiled faintly, her gaze falling to Max. Maybe it's just natural." For the first time, we allowed ourselves to feel without holding back. The warmth between us wasn't just physical. It was emotional, spiritual. Max became more than a dog. He became a shared experience, a silent confidant to our deepest thoughts and desires. The room felt smaller, more intimate, the boundaries between us blending seamlessly. Every touch lingered, every glance deeper than before. There were no words to fully capture the emotions swirling within us, no explanations that could justify what was happening. "Do you ever wonder what it means?" I murmured, tracing patterns on Max's soft fur. Jessica hesitated before responding, her voice a whisper. "It means something, doesn't it?" The room felt charged, alive with unspoken desires. Max's presence was grounding, a reminder of the love and trust we had always shared, but now something more was unfolding. We were crossing into uncharted territory, where feelings blurred and questions became irrelevant. The line between friendship and something deeper was nearly gone, and the only thing left was the understanding that this connection was unlike anything either of us had ever known. But even in the most intimate moments, doubt began to creep in. What we were doing, what we were feeling, was unconventional, risky. The friendship we had built was fragile, and the thought of losing it made our hearts tremble. Jessica and I sat on the porch, the weight of the unspoken hanging heavily between us. Max lay beside us, his presence a comforting constant. "What if someone finds out?" Jessica said, breaking the quiet. "What if everything falls apart?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I can't stop. Not yet." We sat in silence, watching the night unfold before us. The world outside was indifferent to our struggles, but the two of us felt the weight of our decisions. Max remained beside us, unjudging, the only constant in a situation we couldn't control. The air was thick with uncertainty. Each passing moment felt more precarious, as though we were teetering on the edge of something fragile and irreparable. The bond we had forged was beautiful in its complexity, yet it hung in the balance of what society deemed acceptable. "I don't want to lose what we have," Jessica whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Neither did I. But the fear of losing it, of stepping beyond the boundaries of what was deemed normal, loomed over us like a shadow. Every touch, every shared glance, felt more risky than before. Max shifted his position slightly, his ears twitching as if sensing our unease. His gentle presence was a reminder that some things couldn't be explained or controlled, only embraced, even if they defied logic. "I never thought we'd get here," I said, breaking the quiet again. "But now that we have, I don't know how to turn back." Jessica took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Maybe we weren't meant to." The night deepened, the stars watching silently as we faced the reality of our choices. The reckoning was inevitable, but in that moment, neither of us was ready to let go. Weeks passed, and Jessica and I continued to navigate this complex reality. Every touch, every glance, every moment together felt heavier, more significant. Max was still there, his presence a grounding force, but the bond between us had grown deeper, entwined with emotions we couldn't entirely comprehend. Late one night, after a quiet dinner, Jessica stood at the kitchen sink, washing dishes. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her. She turned slightly, catching my gaze, and a shy smile played on her lips. "Max keeps us grounded," she said softly, breaking the silence. "I know," I replied. "But what happens when we can't tell where we end and he begins?" Jessica bit her lip, her eyes searching mine for an answer neither of us had. "Maybe we'll figure it out together." And so we continued, walking the fine line between friendship and something more, with Max as our silent observer, our eternal connection, and our constant reminder that love in any form was worth the risk. The nights blurred into days, each moment filled with quiet revelations. Max, the silent witness, provided comfort in his steady presence, but it became increasingly clear that he wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a part of something larger, a catalyst for the bond we were building, a symbol of trust and understanding that transcended the boundaries of a simple pet-owner relationship. Jessica's laughter echoed softly in the stillness of the house. It was a sound I'd grown used to, a warmth that filled the emptiness in ways I hadn't expected. And as we navigated the complexities of our feelings, the question loomed larger. How long could we maintain this delicate balance before it, shattered under the weight of our unspoken truths? "I think we've reached a point where words aren't enough," I said after a pause, my voice breaking the stillness once more. Jessica nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes actions speak louder. Max's ears twitched, his head tilting ever so slightly as if he understood the depth of our conversation. There was a strange, almost magical connection between us, and even though it defied explanation, it felt right. As the night deepened, we sat together in the quiet, knowing that whatever lay ahead, we'd face it together, with Max by our side, grounding us, guiding us through the blurred lines of love and companionship.